He is. He's a little boy from the Midwest, very high moral standard, very private man, very shy, very, very.
Johnny Carson wasn't just America's favorite late-night host, he was a master of hiding in plain sight. While his sharp wit and smooth charm lit up living rooms across the country, his personal life told a very different story. Carson built a world of secrecy and control, where very few people truly knew the man behind the microphone. For decades, he kept romantic entanglements hidden so well. Even seasoned journalists struggled to find cracks in the illusion. But now, pieces of the puzzle are finally surfacing, and what they reveal is far from the clean-cut image we once believed. At the peak of his fame, Carson was untouchable. His face was on every screen, his jokes quoted across offices, schools, and households. Yet, despite his massive presence in American culture, almost nothing was known about who he really was when the cameras stopped rolling. Some say that was the point. Carson didn't want to be known. Behind that polished charisma was a man deeply protective of his private world, a world filled with shadowy romances, emotional turbulence, and power plays that most never suspected. And when it came to relationships, Carson didn't just keep things quiet, he buried them. So why did so many of his relationships happen in secret? Why were powerful women, rising stars, and even established icons linked to him only in hushed tones? The answer lies in a delicate dance between reputation, influence, and fear, a culture that rewarded silence and punished exposure. As we peel back the layers of Johnny Carson's hidden romantic life, we start to see not just a man, but an entire system built to protect his image. And the more we uncover, the more we realize Johnny Carson's greatest performance may have been the one no one ever saw. Hollywood in the 1960s and 70s wasn't just about glitz and glamour, it was a fortress of secrets. Back then, the industry operated under an unspoken agreement: keep the stars shining and the scandals buried. Studio executives, publicists, and the press all played a part in protecting reputations. A-listers like Johnny Carson thrived in this environment, where discretion was currency and silence was bought, traded, and enforced. If a story threatened a powerful figure's image, it was simply made to disappear. Carson, with his wholesome Midwest appeal and on-air charm, became a symbol of trust for millions. But behind closed doors, he was navigating a world of late-night affairs, turbulent marriages, and emotional chaos. His friends, including fellow icons like Frank Sinatra, understood the game. You throw the press a bone, and they leave the real story alone. Meanwhile, reporters knew the limits, and gossip columnists understood who they could expose and who they couldn't touch. Carson was untouchable by design. Women who got close to Carson had to play by the same rules. Discretion wasn't optional, it was survival. A public affair could end a career or destroy an image, especially for women. Rumors swirled about Carson's secret relationships with actresses like Angie Dickinson, but none were ever confirmed. That wasn't a coincidence. Hollywood's boys' club protected its own, and Johnny Carson was one of the most protected men in it. As long as he kept the laughs coming, no one dared pull back the curtain, until now. Behind the scenes of Johnny, Carson's polished legacy was a web of whispered affairs with some of Hollywood's most captivating women. Angie Dickinson, the fierce star of Policewoman, was rumored to share more than just screen time with Carson. Their flirtations were never public, but insiders claimed they had an understanding. Private dinners, lingering touches backstage, and quiet exits from studio tapings. Dickinson never confirmed it, but her coy interviews and suggestive smiles left plenty unsaid. In a time when even a whisper could spark a scandal, the secrecy was deliberate and dangerous. Then came Marilyn Chambers, the unexpected star of the adult film Behind the Green Door. She was controversial, bold, and nothing like the women Carson usually entertained publicly. Yet sources whispered about late-night visits and quiet moments shared during the early 70s. As Carson's marriage to Joanne Copeland fell apart, it was a risky connection. Chambers was the symbol of a sexual revolution, and Carson's brand couldn't survive that kind of headline. One Tonight Show staffer called it just a moment, but it was enough to raise eyebrows and tighten the shroud around Carson's private life. Morgan Fairchild, the elegant rising star of Dallas, added yet another layer to the mystery. Carson lit up whenever she was on set, and crew members noticed. Rumors swirled about a discreet connection, private chats, subtle gestures, and off-the-record sightings at industry events. Fairchild never addressed the gossip directly, but her reflections on navigating a male-dominated Hollywood hinted at what she left unsaid. These weren't just passing flirtations, they were part of a carefully concealed pattern. where Carson balanced desire with discretion, always staying just out of reach of exposure. Johnny Carson didn't just host The Tonight Show, he ruled it. And with that power came a pattern that played out quietly behind the scenes. Carson gravitated toward women who posed no threat to his carefully curated image. Women who were young, ambitious, and discreet. Actresses like Elaine Joyce and Susan Anton were whispered to be part of his inner orbit, chosen not just for beauty, but for their willingness to keep quiet. In the male-dominated culture of the time, their silence wasn't just expected, it was demanded. Carson's emotional volatility made relationships especially complicated. Friends like Ed McMahon and Dick Cavett later described him as charming one moment, cold the next. His marriages crumbled under the weight of this unpredictability, with ex-wives recalling long stretches of distance and outbursts behind closed doors. The public saw smiles and monologues, but in private, Carson guarded himself with walls no one could climb. If someone crossed the line or threatened his control, they were cut off. No questions asked. It was a pattern repeated again and again. What made it more insidious was the machinery that enabled it. The entertainment industry protected men like Carson at every turn. Publicists buried stories, editors killed headlines, and women who might have spoken up knew the risks: retaliation, career sabotage, or being blacklisted entirely. For many, silence was survival. Carson didn't have to silence anyone. The system did it for him. And in that silence, he was free to live a double life, where he could indulge privately while the public saw only the man who made them laugh. Until, slowly, the truth began to seep through the cracks. Johnny Carson spent decades making millions. Laugh. But when the cameras shut off, he vanished into a world few could access. Those closest to him describe a man both brilliant and broken. Someone who gave so much on stage, he had nothing left behind the scenes. His charm was effortless, but his trust was rare. Carson wasn't just private, he was impenetrable. Even his closest friends admitted they only knew the version of him he allowed. The rest stayed locked away. For years, his secrets were protected by a system built on silence. But time and a changing media landscape slowly cracked that shield. Whispers became interviews, rumors turned into biographies, and a fuller picture emerged. Not a monster, but a man with flaws, power, and a fear of being exposed. The hidden affairs, the emotional distance, the manipulations, they were all part of a legacy that was far more complex than the smiling host on late-night TV. In the end, Johnny Carson's greatest performance wasn't on The Tonight Show. It was the life he kept just out of frame. And now, decades later, the stories that once stayed in the shadows are finally finding the light. We may never know every secret he took to the grave, but what we do know changes everything. The man who brought laughter into our homes was, in truth, a mystery, one that Hollywood helped him hide until it couldn't anymore.